go.fiu.edu/explore. Kind of talking about how the event works, what we're going to be doing, and giving you guys the rundown on this new secret thing that, again, that's all I can really say. So it's going to be Wednesday, tomorrow at 3 p.m. in PG5. And then, no, yeah, I mean, if you guys want to scan it, but again, it's also all over all of our socials and stuff. Then we have, on Thursday, we have an AWS event. So we have an alumni from FIU who works at AWS, or works AWS, going to be coming and teaching you guys how to make a VPN. It's going to be very hands-on, project-based workshop. So if you guys are interested in that, it's going to be at 3:30 in CP, so that's Chem and Physics, I think, 151. So yeah, I'm going to hand it back to the ETLs. You guys have both mics? Or you don't?
It's taking like 30 minutes. There we go. All right. Thank you, Nicole. And now we're going to resume. Boop. Back to this. Bum, bum, bum. It was this one, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, now that you guys got a good idea of like explore the different cohorts that we're going to have, we just want to go over like the cohort structure. So right now we're doing the orientation. This is going to be covering, in the next slide I'll show you what we'll be covering. The next week we'll be doing workshop 1. That's going to be pretty much HTML, general structure, foundation, skeleton of a personal portfolio. Workshop 2, we're going to be styling it. So we're going to be adding different fonts, different features, color schema. We're even going to have a different, if we have the opportunity, we're going to invite one of you guys up here to kind of help us style like one of the sections as well. So it's a little bit interactive and you guys get a good feel of like different ways to kind of use your creativity to kind of format the personal portfolio to make it your own. Because at the end of the day, we want you guys to have your own personal portfolio. It's personal for a reason. So we're going to show you kind of like the general idea of like what it should look like. But we really want to challenge you guys to add your different colors, different schemas, different fonts. Like you can go crazy with it, honestly. But we're just here to kind of give you, like, walk you kind of through the process of like how a personal portfolio can be developed. So it's a little bit easier on you guys. We're even giving you guys starter code as well. So that way it's not as overwhelming, and that way we can also focus on more time, you know, educating you guys, teaching you on the different processes, as well as the different elements, selectors, and the different information. And then workshop 3, we're going to be upgrading your personal portfolio with a little bit of JavaScript. So we took the feedback from last cohort. We realized that a lot of people were coming from, you know, programming 1, programming 2, and some people, hello, who are just coming into programming. So to avoid overwhelming you guys, don't worry. Workshop 3 is very minimum JavaScript, just to kind of give some action elements into your personal portfolio. So it's not just like a static page, but it's really cool. This kind of stuff that we're going to be adding there. So on the next slide, so for this cohort, again, you know, we want you guys to learn the fundamentals from the ground up. So even if you guys never even touch code or touch the laptop, we want to make sure that everyone feels, you know, included, and that they can learn the different technologies as well as the different projects that we'll be doing for you guys. We want to make sure you guys have a functional public portfolio, and then, of course, leave with your own personal touch. So with the next one, what are the goals of this orientation? You know, we're going to, at the end of this, you guys are going to understand basic file structure, as well as the general idea of web development, install and set up development styles. So we're going to be installing VS Code, Git, as well as Live Server if you haven't already. And then we're going to be doing learning the basic command lines, navigation, what the command line is, as well as basic Git commands. We're going to be creating our GitHub profile and repository, and then we're going to get an overview of the workshop and series which we just did, and the project work roadmap. So with that being said, required materials, laptop. It's pretty simple, but yeah, so with that being said, again, we want to share this Explore Hub. This is the QR code if you haven't gotten it already. Again, it's go.fiu.edu/Explore Hub. There you'll find the cohort information for different cohorts. So if you're interested in other stuff besides web dev, maybe it's AI, hardware, video game development, that will be your place to find all the stuff. There's also a calendar as well, so maybe you're kind of confused on when the dates are. You can refer to that, and it'll give you good information on what's there. And as well, too, if you're on like one of our orientations or workshops and you feel a little bit behind, don't worry, we upload all our resources to that Notion page for the web dev side. So if you feel like you're a little bit behind, maybe not understand, or want a little bit more deep understanding on what we went over, you can refer to our website, the Explore Hub web development Notion page, and it'll give you pretty much that information. So concepts we covered, starter code or any other code that we want to have you guys have, as well as any other information we want to share with you guys. So that being said, we're going to go over some live examples. So feel free to scan the QR codes if you guys want to follow along, but I feel like a better example to kind of show you what your coding or personal portfolios can look like and give you guys some inspiration. So I'm going to leave this up here because I see some people scanning the thing, but while I do that, I'm going to Kevin Camacho. It's .me, I think. So I'm going to show this one just because it's kind of similar to what we're going to be doing. This was a guy, Kevin Camacho. He started a club here at Init, like FIU a while ago. Really cool guy. But what's really cool about his, right, is that you notice like when you think of personal portfolio, a lot of people just think of a resume, right? But what's really cool about a personal portfolio is the fact that you can do whatever you want with it. You can style how you want in any way possible. So you see like he has different features. He has like a moving sun cloud where if you press it, it switches it to dark mode, which is really cool. He has a tag cloud, which kind of shows the kind of projects he wants. If you see if I'm moving the mouse, it kind of moves around. He has interactive features and stuff, a resume, a contact button, footer, say hello. And when you go through different things, you have different tabs, different pages. So I wanted to share with this to give you guys a good idea of like there is no limit to how your personal portfolio can be. And it's pretty cool what you can do with it. So, yeah. So you have skills, stuff like that. Right, and even if like maybe you don't want to go this far out, right? Maybe you don't want to put a bunch of stuff or make it that reactive, right? And you want to do something more simplistic. I'm going to show you guys another guy, Felix Arbusius, his website. It's a little bit more simplistic. He does use React. We're not going to be using React in this workshop, in this cohort, but it's still good to get a good idea of kind of what we'll be working on. So I want to show you guys these, just so you guys get a good little bit of inspiration, maybe different color schemas. So this is Felix Arbusius. He's going to Microsoft this summer. But even just having like a basic with just like a couple React pages and stuff like that, you can really go off and really show some different color schemes. He has different technologies, experience. But looking at this, you'll kind of see like a different a format that most of them are following. Experiences, projects, different footers, languages they're using. Sometimes they're not using projects, but just making it look good. So when you give it to recruiters, they're not just looking at another resume, right? They're looking at a part of you, something that you can express in different ways through different colors, schematics, objects, however you want to do it, right? And like most of them have like a link usually at the top, like he has one to his LinkedIn and his GitHub, which I'm sure if you click it, it will take you to it. But yeah, and I want to see if I can actually find one more. This one is actually the president of Init right now, or used to be the president. Really cool guy. Where is it? There he is, David Ula. So David, he's actually going to Google this summer, and if I'm not mistaken, oh, I think he took it down. Huh. Oh, wait, there it is. So he also has a website, and what's really cool, right? Like, most people, when you're trying to share a resume, you have to usually like drop it in a portal or find a QR code. What's cool about a website is you can just give them the link, and no matter where you are, no matter phone or website or computer, you can show it off. So if we go here, and it can't load. Okay. So he might have taken it down, but it was pretty cool. It was he pretty much made like a mini like Apple computer that you click through, and it showed like different pixelated of his resume, his contact, and stuff like that. So it's pretty awesome. So with that, we're going to go back into here. I want to show you guys that just so you guys have a good idea of like, limitations are only limited by your mind and how far you can go with it. So with that being said, now we're going to be doing file structure and allocation. I wanted to touch on this because a lot of people, maybe this is their first time coding a project. People are coming from different majors. Maybe you're not doing computer science, so maybe you only have school projects. It's really important. I want to stress this enough. When it comes to making new projects, where you put your projects, because the last thing you want to do, right, is you want to go through the whole cohort, make a really awesome project or an awesome, portfolio, but then you don't know where it is, right? So I'm going to show you guys how I usually store mine. And if you guys haven't already done this, or if you have something similar, you feel free to skip this part. But for those of you who are just getting into it, I think this is a good way to kind of introduce you into making sure that you guys have the proper file allocation. So if we go here, all right, and I'll get rid of this, rid of this, rid of this, rid of this, right? So you'll see, if I highlight right here, you see how it says project builds? What's good about this is the fact that anytime I make a project, I always make sure it goes into this folder. And this is outside of school. And what's good about this is, right, if I click it, and you see how I have a bunch of folders within it, what's good about this is I want to make sure that every project that I create outside of FIU, outside of school, I know where I can go and find it. The reason why this is important is because you'll see when we start going into the command line as well, when it comes to going into directories and as well as file education and kind of navigating through that, you want to make sure that you don't have to go through 50 folders just to find where your project is stored, right? So if you notice, right, I have, blog app expense tracker, which is another thing. You want to make sure you name it something that you actually remember. You don't want to name it a random number and you can't remember it. So if you haven't started, I recommend going onto your desktop, just creating a simple blank folder, call it project builds, projects, anything that you know that's going to be separate from everything else that you're creating, just so when we go and start coding, we won't have any issues trying to find where your code is or anything that you're trying to refer to too. Because you'll notice when we go into VS Code, where your files are located are super important. So when the computer's trying to read out where the files are going, and when it's reading it, it's not having errors because you have your index or your JavaScript in a different folder, in a different file, in a different location. So I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes if you haven't already. Just really quickly, just make a folder. If you have it already, cool, you can just wait until the next step. But I want to give some time for people that may have not have it already to make a little folder. I like to call mine project builds. And then from there, we'll go on to the next step. Yes? Yeah. So also raise your hand if you have any questions. Again, everyone's a beginner here, so there's no wrong question. Rosaline's going to be walking around helping anyone who has maybe technical difficulties, or if you want anything for me to repeat or go back over, I'm more than happy to go over again. So. Okay, awesome. Is there anyone still making a file or folder for the location or still working on that? No? Okay, sweet. Let me move on to the next step. So now we have an empty folder, right? Or maybe you already have a folder. It's called project builds, whatever you want to call it. Next, I want you guys to, if you haven't already, download this. It's going to be called VS Code or Virtual Studio Code. Why we want you to download this? You can use any ID if you want. I know some people, especially if your computer starts, you're taking programming, Program 2, you guys might be familiar with IntelliJ. This is similar to it. However, we like VS Code because there's certain extensions that you can get on VS Code that just makes it more efficient. And when you do projects, it's a lot more easier, a lot more readable, a lot more customizable. You're feel free to use IntelliJ. It is a lot more difficult, and we've had people having issues with it, especially with, it's really good with Java, but when it comes to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we've had some issues. So we recommend getting VS Code. It'll be easier to help you stay along. There's certain extensions we can get, like Live Server. So yeah, awesome. And if you guys want to read more about it, there's always a doc page. Most websites, especially in tech, will have a doc, so you can read about it. It'll tell you how to get started, download, key features for those readers out there. And another one we're going to go over is GitHub. So it's spelled like this. And I'm going to show you what it looks like, actually, when you're not in it. So it's going to look like this if you guys never seen it before, right? So this is GitHub. This is where it's pretty much a platform for anyone who's into programming to share their code, find code, get inspiration for code. It's pretty much one of the biggest platforms, if not the biggest platform when it comes to coding resources. So we want you guys to use GitHub because we're going to show you in a little bit how to make a profile, how to make a repository, and how to go about that process. Why is this important? Well, how we're doing the personal portfolio, right? is we're making it on our local repo, our local computer, but we need a way to actually display that to other people and how to actually use it and make sure that other people can actually look at it via our code. How we're going to do that, especially when we're deploying, is we're using GitHub, right? We're going to be coding on our own local repository. We're going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to put it on the platform of GitHub, so it's public. And then we're going to be using Netlify to deploy it, because Netlify is going to pull from GitHub and deploy it to the public. So, does anyone here not have a GitHub profile? Just want to ask. No? Everyone's good? Okay, awesome. So we're going to go into GitHub, right? I'm going to sign in. So you're going to go to your dashboard, right? You're going to go to profile. You're going to have your stuff. It's going to look something similar like this, right? You can add your file, folder, and stuff like that. It's a nice little platform. I added a README just because it looks, if people are technical, they can go on and read it. If anyone wants to stay after, I can show you guys how to do it. It's pretty cool. But what's really important right now is we're going to go to our repositories, right? And you see this little green button where it says New. This is going to create a new repository, so that's what we're going to be doing. So I want you guys to click that button. After you download this, you have VS Code, you guys have GitHub. Now we're going to actually make a repository. So once VS Code is installed, once we hit new repository, right, we're going to hit new. You're going to hear it's going to say create new repository. And most of the information, you don't have to worry about it. Don't touch it. By default, it's going to be OK. But for right now, what's really important is I want you guys to come up with a repository name, right? So come up with something that is going to be a personal portfolio. You can come up with anything. I'm just going to call it Skylar's personal portfolio. The name doesn't matter, but make sure it's readable and it's not 1,000 characters. It just makes it easier for yourself. And yeah, so you have your owner, description. Make sure it's public. You can make it private, but we're going to keep it public for now, just because it's easier and we don't have any issues later. No need to add you can add a README if you want. I'll show you guys really quickly. So when people go into your repo and stuff like that, they can read what your personal portfolio is about. And yeah, so once you have that, you're going to hit this next green button. It's going to be called Create Repository. You should see something like this. If you click the README, it's going to add the README file. If not, it's optional. Don't worry about it. So now you have something like this, right? So you have your public, you have a repository name. So now we have VS Code, now we have GitHub, now we have a repo. How do we connect it, right? So you're going to open VS Code, and I'm going to delete these. Right? And then open this. And it's going to look something like this once you open it. Right? It's going to be Visual Studio Code, editing Evolve. You'll see some places where it starts, right? Is there anyone not here yet who doesn't have VS Code that's still installing? You too? Okay, so I'll give a minute just so that way they can catch up. But yeah, so if there's any questions right now, I can take questions about why VS Code, GitHub, doc types, anything like that. So. But yeah, file education and installing. Yes.
What do I do for this here?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys in a little bit, but just hold on because next one we're doing.
Still updating. So.
It's still updating. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit more just because people are still updating VS Code, but we'll show you guys next. But what's cool about that is we're going to take that copy and we're going to put it into VS Code, and it'll show. Another resource while you guys are installing stuff, I want to show you guys that's super important is Git. This is a version control system. It's going to help. It basically helps you track the changes in your code, collaborate with other people, and manage different versions of your project. So it's actually called Git. Installation. I think. No, this is a different version. There it is. Okay, so it's if you guys type in the search bar, it's pretty much Git for GitHub. If you do that in your search feature, it'll take you to set up Git for GitHub to make sure they're compatible. And then you're going to scroll down and set up Git, and you're going to see this one where it says setting up Git, and you're going to download and install the latest version of Git. This is going to be your version control. You can also do, I believe, GitHub Desktop as well if you want a different version. Yeah, so there's different versions. Yes?
To make sure that I have the latest version. So I have it downloaded, but I don't know if it's the latest version exactly.
How long did you download it ago?
Like a year.
Oh, you should be fine. Yeah. Giving it a second if anyone doesn't have Git installed. So you should have Git, GitHub, and VS Code. I'm going to show one more time for anyone who might have missed it. You just pretty much Google Git for GitHub, and it'll take you to set up Git. Then you go to the GitHub docs, scroll a little bit down, and it'll be this one right here. And it'll take you here. And depending on which download you have for Mac, Windows, or Linux, you're going to use the appropriate one. And yeah, so awesome. Is anyone still downloading Git, VS Code, or setting up the GitHub? You are? Okay, take a couple more minutes. VS Code. And for those guys that are just coming in, I'm just going to touch on some points that you guys may have missed. Make sure that when you guys are making your folders, that you're putting it somewhere that's easy to read, that you can see, and that's easy to access. That way later on when we're coding, you don't have to search through a bunch of folders to find where you put your project. Awesome. Yeah. So I was talking about how important it is file allocation, making sure that where your folder is, it's easy to find. So that way when you're looking through it again, you don't have to go through 30 folders to find where that project is. Yeah. Anyone still working on installation? I see 1, 2. What's it stuck on? Oh, it's done. Oh, it's installed. Wow, that's. Okay.
You might have a bunch of packages. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, while that's downloading, I'm gonna move on, but I'm gonna be with you to keep you up. So, because it's not gonna be a lot of stuff that we're going over. Mm-hmm. You said you're still downloading it?
Yeah, I'm downloading it now. It's just all default settings, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, the starter. Awesome.
Like that's what you had on your GitHub.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm gonna be showing that next. Awesome.
And then just launch it when it's done.
Yep, finish and then launch everything. Yep.
VS Code.
Yep. There you go. Awesome. There you go.
Just open it. Okay, cool. That's
Yeah, that's gonna be release notes, so you can exit out of that. It's kind of like a tab. Yep. And then you're gonna go here, and then I'm gonna show you guys next what to do. Awesome. Okay. Well, most of you guys are finished. I'm gonna move on to the next step. Now we have VS Code. We have Git. We have GitHub. We have our profiles. We have our repositories. What are we doing next? Well, create a repo. Now we're gonna be doing the project. So I saw some of you already kind of saw. What I want you guys to do is go into your profile, like you're gonna go into your portfolio, your repo, right? So an easy way to go there, go to your profile, you're going to click repositories, and then you're going to find where your repository is, right? And you're going to go here, which is this one. Should be at the top, the latest one. You're going to hit code. It's this little green button. So again, once you're at your profile, you're going to hit repositories. You're going to go to your repository. You're going to click that blue link. And then you're going to hit code. And then it should get you an HTTPS one. Make sure it's not on SH or GitHub. Make sure it's on the HTTPS one. You're going to click this copy to URL. You're going to go to VS Code, which you have now open. It should be a welcome page. All right, it's going to look like this. And you see where it says clone get repository? I want you guys to click that. And then you can either choose a selector, which is the remote resources, or you can paste it, right? So if you have it pasted, you can paste it, or you could just choose the selector down there, and it'll also do that as well. And then it's going to bring you a little download file. Remember why we made that folder? So that's why I do that. So you're just going to click project builds, or whatever your folder is, where that project's going to be. And then once you're in the folder itself, you don't need to create a folder for it. It's going to make it automatically. So you see how I'm in the project build folder. Once I create this, it's going to make a folder, and I'll show this. So you notice how if you watch closely, there's nothing that says like the Skylar's personal portfolio. Once I hit this, right, I'll go back in. Just say, would you like to open? You're going to hit open, right? So now it's like this. I want to show you really quickly. If I go back to my documents and I go into project builds, if we scroll down, now you'll see how it created and it cloned it. What it pretty much did, right, is now that we have the repo on our GitHub profile, we made it locally on our GitHub profile. Then we cloned it, whichever code's in there, how much code we have, and we're bringing it into our local repository, into our folder. So this is why it's important. I wanted to stress enough about making sure that where you put your files, where you put your folders are important, because as we're coding along, it makes it more easier as you're going through directories. So now that it's in our local repository, now we have an empty repo. What are we going to do, right? So now we're here, and we have a README. We can edit it if we want to. I can show you guys that later if we have the extra time. But for now, I want you guys to pretty much make a file, which is going to be called index.html. It's going to be called that. So make sure you label these files right, because how VS Code reads the files is dependent on the dot. So if you notice how it turned into, yes?
The thing on top that says open editors, how does that?
Open editors. So this is pretty much what's open right now. So if I close the README, right, it's just saying what files are open. You see, now that I closed all of them, it's not open anymore. But when I open it again, it opens. So it's pretty much just telling you which files you have open, and it allows you to manage it a little bit better. So now that you create a file, right, it's called index.html, and I want to stress like how you name it does matter, because if we did something like style dot, or if we did index dot anything, so it would work. Okay, so it might work, but for making sure that we're all on the same page and that way it's not having any bugs, we're just going to call it index.html. Did not know that. Boom, boom, boom. So we're going to call it index.html. Right? So now we can put whatever you want. But what I want you guys to do really quickly is download this extension. So if you come down on VS Code, there's these like 4 little blocks on the bottom. Right? These are extensions that you can add to your VS Code. I want you guys to go in there and look for live server. It's going to look something like this. What this is going to do throughout the project is it's pretty much going to show you live coding, pretty much. So as you're coding along, you can kind of keep updated and kind of see, instead of having to go into your download file and open the index file, it's going to show you live as you're coding what you're coding up. So it's a pretty cool extension. We're going to be using it a lot to show off like what we're doing as we're going along. Highly recommend it as well. It just makes it easier. This is also another reason why we're using VS Code. One of these extensions are really nice to have as you're coding. So I'm going to give 1 minute, so I always give everyone a chance to download it. I'm going to show it once again. So you're going to be in the Explorer, which is kind of like where your files are going to be. You're going to come down here where it says extensions. You can also press Control-Shift-X. It might be different on Mac. You're going to look for live server. You're going to click live server, and then you're going to install. And while that's loading, I'm going to show why this is really cool. So for example, if we have an index, and we did a simple H1, and we did hello world, right? And we did this little button down here. You see how it says go live? That's the live server extension. When we hit that, it's going to actually come up. And what's cool about the live server extension, right, is as we're editing it, it's actually going to keep displaying what we're doing, right? So if I get rid of this, it's not possible without header body tag. Oh, okay. Voltage. So I'm gonna fix this really quick. There we go. Yeah. So I'm just showing an example. You guys don't have to code this part. I'm just showing a quick example. There we go. Okay. So you might have to refresh it. I don't know why mine's not working right now. It might be because it's laggy, but as you can see, right, as we're coding, we're showing off different things. As we refresh, there you go. So now it's kind of working. So that's why we want to do live server. This is why we want to do VS Code, because as we're coding, we can kind of see what we're coding along. So don't worry about the doc type stuff. We're going to be tapping into that a little bit later. You don't have to type it word for word. For that doc type, you just put one exclamation point and hit enter, and it'll make the whole thing for you. Yeah, so I'll show it again. It's literally just one exclamation point, right? And it'll do the event abbreviation, press enter, it'll doc type. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. I just wanted to show that off. So we have, right, we're gonna just put a little bit of code. So I want you guys to do H1 and then hit tab, because I want to show you guys how to push the code, right? Because it doesn't matter how much we code, right? It's still in our local repository. And if we go to our GitHub actually, right? And we go back to our GitHub, which would be here, you notice that we don't have the index file, right? We only have the README file, which is weird because in the folder, like if we go into our actual downloads, and then we go into project builds, and then we go to personal portfolio, we have the index, right? So on our local machine, we have the index file, but it's not on our GitHub portfolio, right? So how do we fix that? How we fix that is pretty much using what I call the Holy Trinity, which is git add period. It's going to be git commit.m and then the message, which is a flag, and then git push. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So you see how we have this index file. We want to move this from our local storage onto our GitHub profile. And a good way of practice is doing this frequently, because as we're coding, right, imagine you're spending 8 hours coding a new project, but it's not on your GitHub portfolio. If something were to happen to your code, say your laptop dies or a shortage happens, and you lose all that code. So what's good practice is to ensure that we're constantly updating our code as we're coding to ensure that what we're making isn't getting lost and that it's up to date. It's kind of like saving like a video game almost. So, but we have to do that manually. So we're going to put, you can put anything you want in this index.html file. I'm just going to put it like an H1, hit tab, and then put hello world. So I'm just going to put this. And then I'm going to do the command line. So I'm going to show you how to open up the command line, also called the terminal. So if you come up here, and you see these 3 dots up here, all the way up here, you're going to click that. It's going to come down. It's going to say terminal. And then we're going to hit new terminal. And there's a shortcut for that, which is Control-Shift backtick if you're on a Mac. But if you're on or not a Mac, but Windows, if you're on Mac, it might be a little bit different. So I'm going to show you how to, I'm not sure how to do it on Apple, but if you're still stuck, it's the 3 dots, the terminal, and then the new terminal. I want you guys to click that. Once you click it, it's going to come up as the terminal. And make sure that you're on the right version. So if you're on any Windows, it's going to be PowerShell. If you're on Mac, make sure you're on Bash. They just work together better. And remember how I was talking about file education, directories, and making sure that you know where it is? The reason why this is important is because when we go in the terminal and we're talking into the command line and we're doing different commands pretty much, you'll see that we have, users, my name, OneDrive, desktop, project builds. So this is actually where we are, right? So when it comes to making projects and you're making code, you want to make sure that when you're talking terminal commands, that you're in the right directory. And I'll show you quickly how to move around and stuff. So, for example, right now we're in my kind of portfolio right now. But if I want to move back, I could do CD and then back 2 periods. And you'll notice now, instead of being all this with my name at the end, the personal portfolio, now we're in the project builds, right? So it's similar to how you move into a folder, right? So notice how we'll go to a desktop, right? And you're here, and you see at the top, usually you have your personal and then the desktop. It's similar in the command line. And then you can go from there, you go to project builds, how it adds on there. And then when you go into a folder, it just keeps going on and on and on and so forth. So that's why it's important to make sure when your folders are in the same place, they're easy to find. So as you're coding along, creating your portfolio more and more and more, it makes more sense, it's easier to understand. So with that, I'm going to move back into this by simply doing CD and then pasting it. And now I'm moving back into my folder. So now I'm back here. And now, right? So now we have updated folders, updated files in our code. We're pushing it to GitHub. How would you do that? Actually, I'm going to take a minute just for anyone to catch up or ask any questions. Yes? Oh, she's going to help. Okay, awesome. Yes?
What about the Git bash? How exactly?
Yeah, so I'll show you. Notice how mine says PowerShell. You're going to hit the...
Bash.
That's perfect. Yeah. So for Mac, Mac products specifically, they have their own, which is called Bash. I'm not too familiar with what it's called. I forgot what it is. But it's pretty much different terminals. One's for Mac, one's for Microsoft. You can use either or, but Windows products are usually better for PowerShell, and then Mac products are usually more better for Bash.
Okay.
So, but if you're using Mac, you want to make sure it is on Bash. Take a couple more seconds, and then we'll move on to the next part. So, now we're here. I'm going to show you guys the Holy Trinity, I like to call it, whenever you're doing code. We're in the main branch. We're going to do git add period. What this does pretty much is it's creating a box, and it's taking all the files that we changed, updated, deleted, and it's putting in a box. So imagine like a cardboard box, right? And we're pretty much shipping it from our local repo or computer onto an online platform that's just GitHub. We're going to hit enter. Right? And you know it works because it just goes immediately down. You have no errors. You have no e-notes. That tells us that the files was just added. Next, we're going to do add commit. We're going to add a flag M, which is a message. It's pretty much telling us what we're changing. We're going to call it initialize. Initialize. That is not how you spell it. Initialize. That's probably not how you spell it, but that's how I'm going to name it. So I'm going to name it initialize. I'm going to hit enter again. And notice how it says one file change, one insertion. That's pretty much the index.html file that we created. So now that we've done that, pretty much with the commit, we're pretty much closing the package into the box that we're sending off to GitHub. And then from there, we're going to do git push. And this is pretty much pushing the box of content onto our GitHub portfolio. But before I do and press enter, I'm going to show you guys really quickly. So if I reload this, notice again, it's only the readme. There's no index. There's nothing on there. And if we go to activity, there's nothing on here. It's just the initial commit, which was just opening it. But when we hit this code, right, which is the git push, which is pushing it onto the GitHub our portfolio or profile. We just pushed it, and now we know it worked because when we go back and we hit reload, now it's on there, right? So now both our local computer that has our code on it, as well as our GitHub profile has the same lines of code. Now we just pushed our first pretty much commit onto our project. So, and if we go to activity, you can also see this is why we do messages, because you'll see it says initialize. And yeah, so now we just made a repo, we just made our first commit. Now we have a good idea of what we're doing, right? Yes?
Live server.
Oh, you need help with the live server?
Yeah. Because I have it downloaded, but it's not showing.
It's not showing.
Yeah, because I've had it downloaded now, but it's not. Isn't it supposed to show like down here?
Try closing it and reopening it maybe? Or go back to the extensions. Yeah, down to let the boxes.
Oh my bad. Live server, yeah, I have it downloaded. And it's like,
Close it, close live server, or close VS Code and then try reopening, and then we'll come back after. So now we have file allocation, right? Now we touched on making a GitHub portfolio. We made our first repo. We pushed our first code. Now everyone should be at a point where when we start going into the next workshop, when we go into more depth about HTML, we're going to be reusing these concepts to pretty much build the structure of the portfolio that we'll be creating. So yeah, that's pretty much all that we're covering today. Thank you guys for showing up. And me and Rosaline will be staying after if you guys have any questions, any workshop concerns, or yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, let me present it. Boop. Da, 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 da. Thank you guys. Sweet. Oh, yeah. Very good.
Thank you, man. Yep. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next time, could before we start, just
Get a warning.
yeah.
Apologies, my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
I should have told you guys beforehand.
No, it was a weird day because
Yeah, there's no one else already.
yeah. But
Yeah, so we initialize. If anyone